All of you, very welcome to this webinar that we're holding today together with Dynata. And we are really into an interesting topic, which is crucial when you do market research. And it's a deep dive into data quality. And we're going to cover quite a few different areas and dimension of, this problem that occurs that you get poor data into your market research. So just to kick things off, my name is Martin. I'm going to be your host for this webinar. I work as an account director at Nepa. Together with me, I have my dear colleague, Fredrik Olsson. He is operation manager and he knows everything that needs to be known about panel data. And also our dear guest, Vilko Rosama from Dynata, which is joining us today as well. And as you know, Nepa helps companies to grow their business through relevant insight. And Dynata is one of the biggest players in the industry with over 70 million first-party data panelists. All right, that being said, let's cut the chase and jump right into today's topic. So, what's driving the rise in poor data quality? And I think this question is really relevant, and also I think Fredrik has some interesting insights and dimension to this question.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. And I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that this is a real problem. It's impacting all players in the industry, I would say. Some of them also have deemed this being a crisis. And we, of course, take it very serious. And here at Nepa, we started to see signs of odd respondent behavior back in late 2022. And it was mostly prevalent in the bigger research markets like UK, Germany, and US. And we could also start to see discussions popping up in the community around the rise of fraud. And now, 2 years later, data quality and fraud is probably the most common discussion topic, and also, of course, a key challenge we stand against. And I'll go through a couple of driving forces that I believe is important, that has been important for this change. The first one being the digital transformation, and basically based on the rapid evolvement recently of digitalization and the use of it within market research, as well as of course the growth of AI. This has really opened up for digital fraud, moving away from previous arenas that could be, for example, online advertisement or e-commerce, where they are now exploiting vulnerabilities within our industry. The second part, which is quite important in general for driving quality or bad quality of data, is the incentive structures. Using incentives in market research is super important to improve conversion and to ensure participation, but it's also attracting individuals who just participate to deceive for financial gain. It's often too easy for people to convert their participation to real money without having proper security measures in place. Basically, it's too simple to make quick money in large scales. And the third part here is the general disengagement. And global research volume has increased largely over the recent years. We can also see that survey quality is deteriorating. We see that research participant is often presented with poorly designed, poorly translated, and often also very, very long surveys. And the reason we can see that is because we also own and manage a couple of online panels, and we follow our panelists' engagement. So I think growing disengagement in this industry can really undermine data quality. So these three areas are really important for the problem we stand against. And it's also interesting to look at these fraudulent actors that we have started to see rising in the recent years. Who are they? I would say that the industry has identified different types of fraudsters, some of them being even companies. that organize to do fraud in large scale and very structured. Some are called click farms, so that's a common name for this type of business. There's also been instances of individuals who create AI bots or computer-steered bots to access large volumes of service, or even professional panelists who get access to many service and do way too much service and not being of good quality. So I think these are important factors that I think is driving.
Right. Thanks a lot, Fredrik. Really interesting to set the scene here. And from your perspective, Wilco, I mean, obviously you have 70 million panelists, and there is a lot of data flowing around. What are your perspective of what Fredrik has outlined here?
Yeah, thank you, Martin. I can only agree to Fredrik, right? We've seen that rise of fraudulent activity among panels, but also people being engaged in a different way. And I think it's very important to understand those are two separate things, right, in there. Okay, if you look at fraud is someone pretending to be someone they are not, right? And the only intent they have is to make money. And I have a lot of conversations on data quality and fraud nowadays. What people need to understand is that those people, it's a job for them, right? So they keep on innovating. Is it a crisis to our industry? I don't think it's only to our industry, right? It happens in the banking industry, it happens in the media sector. Wherever people can earn money in an easy way, they will get there. And let's be clear as well, it's often about 50 cents, maybe €1 that they can earn with it. So it's also about the volume. So that is where Fredrik is relating to automated ways, click farms, and then making sure that someone on the other side is not aware that they are a fraudster. Because if they are catched, it doesn't bring them to their income, right? So we need to protect ourselves against that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And then you have disengagement. And I think on disengagement, we as an industry can still learn a lot as well, because we're sometimes stuck in our old behaviors and we don't follow the real trends. And then I sometimes even say, if you are a researcher and you think your job is understanding a consumer, why do we still have difficulties understanding what consumers like to participate in, right? That is the odd thing. And Nepa is doing a great job, one of the best surveys, right? Got an award for that last year. But that is important to know as well, in my opinion.
All right. Thanks, Wilco. All right, let's move on. All right, so question number 2. How do you detect shifts and identify fraudulent data? And I think this question is really interesting, and I think Fredrik is the one to take a shot at this one as well.
Yeah, and I'd like to start focusing a little bit on our primary research product, which is brand health tracking, which is focusing on marketing optimization. And in these kind of projects, we sample data continuously. So we collect data every day throughout the year to measure brand effects over time. We do this all over the world, currently in over 60 markets. And the honest reality is that we have ad trackers being affected by fraudulent data. The reason why I want to bring this up is because the advantage of having continuous data collection when monitoring for fraud is that we are able to detect anomalies as they occur in great detail. Because what we have seen is that fraud is not always seen as a long-term decline in data quality, but rather as sudden spikes. So there is something that's suddenly happened and changed in one of our brand tracker. And when we look at individual responses from these fraudulent respondents, they might actually appear legitimate. They look like any other respondent. They don't stand out. But they stand out when you look at it in the context of the longer term data collection within this category. So they stand out from the norm. And the typical effects we see is when we look at this continuous data is could be typically changes in number of brands, so how many brands someone actually answers within a specific industry, or a sudden change in well-known brands. All of a sudden, the most common brands within this category in this market is not that aware anymore, and that is odd. That does not follow the norm. We've also seen more device-based or machine-based patterns, for example, device shares or even interview duration. It's what's quite surprising that we saw that back in the days we have seen bad data or fraudsters coming through as speeders. They speed through the survey. When analyzing the recent data, we actually see that it's more often that fraudsters actually take way too long time. They spend much longer time doing the survey than the norm. Maybe because they really want to try to get it right. They maybe have to Google the questions and figure out what's the most correct answer to this kind of question. It just takes them longer. And by using this knowledge, we can identify symptoms that is typical of fraud. And then we combine it with our collaborations with our data suppliers, Dynata, for example, to actually figure out how to process this data and detect fraud as it happens. So all in all, I would say fraudulent activity, that's a reality. Some of the symptoms we discover, they are very evident and straightforward, and you can easily build preventive measures against them. But it's very important to look at this from a multi-factor approach. We can't only look at open ends, for example. Nowadays, people are using sophisticated tools, for example, OpenAI, to write perfect open ends, or maybe sometimes even too perfect, but it's not enough. Fraud needs to be looked upon as from a wide angle of different factors all together as one. I think that's really key to solve this.
All right, thanks, Fredrik. And from your side of the fence, Wilco, what when you hear Fredrik say this, what's your take?
Again, I'm on the same page as Fredrik, right? And then I think the advantage here is that you're measuring a trend, so you have continuous fieldwork, so you can compare data and you see shifts that are so unlikely. But then imagine as well, if you're doing an ad hoc study and you have no reference point, how do you detect the data is odd, right? And how do you know that? That is often gut feeling. I think at the moment, everyone in the industry knows, okay, there's a certain percentage of fraud going on disengagement. So what people tend to do now is that they start looking at data, having in mind, I need to remove 10%, 20%, or etc. And they start removing what looks odd to them. Now, what happens then is you are catching lazy cheaters, right? That don't want to spend effort on cheating in the survey, but try to get to a quick incentive, straight lining, speeding, or some inconsistencies in the data. Or you remove completely disengaged people that just click through it because you see it's odd. What you don't see are those sophisticated frauds. As Fredrik said, with AI, they have lots of opportunities to fill in surveys without people seeing that with the naked eye. And that has been a big change. We call them sophisticated fraudsters. And if they know, or if they find a way to enter your survey, they know how to redo that. They have a lot of knowledge on our industry and they multiply themselves, right? They change IP addresses, they change machine IDs. So if you look at the digital fingerprint, look like unique people, but that are those click farms often in that case. They know how to trick the system that the LOI doesn't look odd. They use Google Translate often while they're in a survey. So even if they fill a survey that is not their native language, they know what they need to fill in your red herring question so that they are not catched. And that is often where researchers are stuck with. They look at data in the traditional way, while those sophisticated fraudsters are 2, 3, 4 steps ahead of those methods, because they know where a researcher is looking at Fredrik. They know how to manipulate length, right? So what they typically do, they go quickly through the first part, leave the screen open on the last part. In a new window, they do another survey so that they can easily come to money. But if you have acceleration checks, for example, in place, you will see what they're doing in the survey. So yes, on one hand, you see anomalies in the data, but there's also fraud going on that you don't see if you don't use innovative ways to protect your surveys. And I think that is where we're going to talk about in a little bit as well. And that holistic approach, looking at all ways, is optimizing data quality, in my opinion.
Yeah, thanks for that, Wilco. I think we will untangle some of these issues that's been discussed here. And let's move on. And so question number 2 is Nepa taking any measures to reduce the prevalence of bad or fraudulent data? And since it's asked for Nepa, I guess Fredrik is the best guy in the room to answer that question. What are your thoughts around that, Fredrik?
Yeah, I would say that we certainly are, and I would claim that we are proactive now in mitigating the fraudulent data, and we look at this, as we have said, through a holistic approach throughout the whole value chain of research data. And this is, of course, based on the fact that we understand that our clients, they entrust us with the responsibility to ensure data reliability. That's our responsibility. And that's, of course, then our highest priority to live up to that. So this is our top priority. And of course, we are taking many measures to reduce this prevalence. But and I'll highlight 3 efforts that I find at least being key here. And the first one has already been touched upon, but that's still really important. The respondent engagement is something that we really pride ourselves with being among the best in the class. And I think this relates to the fact that we have our internal consultants being category experts, being really great at designing optimal surveys to make sure that the respondent experience is in line with what kind of questions they're asked. And that's really a high quality survey they're getting. We combine this with having in-house experts on survey programming. So we can really make sure that we program the survey in the best possible way. And these 2 components, I think, is really vital to ensure this data quality aspects of respondent engagement. Another angle of this is that we really focus on short surveys. We're often developing modular surveys, or always at least thinking ways to optimize the survey duration. When we look at the average survey length across all our surveys, all our different products, we are having a less than 8-minute survey length or interview duration. And this is at least within what we think is very important. The range of being less than 10 minutes is really important for us. Second point here that I want to bring up is the aspect of collaboration. Collaboration is really key to solve this problem, as we've already talked about. And the way we work is that we try to work together with our data suppliers. We work with only reputable data suppliers, Dynata being one of them, to allow them for us to access high quality respondents. But then we also work together with the suppliers to understand where there are gaps, where are areas where we can actually take responsibility in ensuring data quality. One example here is something we developed last year was ensuring security in the communication between the survey tool, which we host on our side, to the data supplier. So to ensure that there's secure links passing through information between a potential respondent all the way through our survey tool and back to the data supplier. And that's something that really solves a critical need we have seen being a factor of affecting data quality. Additionally, we also follow and adhere to guidelines from the community. We follow closely the communication that comes from the globaldataquality.org, which is really important, an important community to tackle this problem. We've also, as another example, signed the quality pledge that is coming from the company called Realize. So collaboration is really important here. Possibly most important, though, is the processes and tools that we have in place, because this really require very key and highly advanced processes and also tools. So we at Nepa, we have a dedicated team now. They have developed processes and tools to monitor trends of our brand trackers in real time. And having this in place, we can keep a track of emerging fraud tactics, emerging symptoms, what we don't know today, and really react on those. It's still going to be reactive, but we believe that it's really important to be prepared, because we don't know what's going to come tomorrow, and we also don't want to build a lot of features inside the surveys to really disturb respondents. There's arguments to have trap questions, trap answers, and different kinds of things that could identify bad quality. But then we're back to the respondent engagement. We can't make it a pain for the respondents to do the survey. A tool that is very important for us these days, that focus on the survey participation. That is a tool that we have started to implement now, which is approaching respondents when they are doing the survey through a multi-factor approach. And this is the key, as I just mentioned, that having this approach by multiple different angles, that is a key. That's a key solution here. And the tool I'm talking about is actually Dynata's quality score, which is used to systematically evaluate respondents when they take the survey and select respondents who demonstrate genuine engagement and non-fraudulent behavior. And on the other side, then, this actually allows us to identify and remove frauds as it happens. So this is a proactive measure that really makes a difference. And I would actually encourage buyers of research data or end receivers of data from agencies like us to question us, to really ask us, what do you have in place to ensure data reliability? We should be able to explain how we work towards minimizing this risk of fraud, and also work towards finding new potential symptoms. So I think it's really important to make sure that you ask these questions, because they're always going to be relevant.
Right. Thanks a lot, Frederick. And from your perspective, then, Wilco, hearing our approach to data quality, obviously we work very close together with you guys, so I don't think there is like any big news here. But what's your thought around how we approach this issue?
I just want to add to that I think that is something that changed over the years, right? So if you look at it 5-6 years back, data collection was often a black box, right? And there was not a lot shared on how that happens, how it's secured, etc. But you can't do that nowadays anymore. It is about how do you collaborate, as Frederick said, because if an agency is programming the survey, I don't see what happens on their end with our respondents. So that is a black hole for me. What typically happens then is that they start coming back 2 weeks after fieldwork was closed. Too late. Those people that might have done fraud, if they find a way to all the security things we did at recruitment, they're gone with the incentive already. So closing that feedback loop together with customers is key to optimize data integrity. Now, quality score helps there. It's a part of the solution, right? I'm not going to say quality, it's a score itself is ensuring data quality, but it's everything around it. And then this is a super valuable addition to that.
Great. I think this is a good pathway to the next question then. And the question is, and how is Dynata as a panel provider ensuring their data is accurate? And I think it's valid to point out here is like now we're having you Dynata here as one of our panel providers, but I think what you're going to talk about, Wilco, is important for anyone who's buying survey data, right, to ask those questions, and then different panel providers have different methodologies to tackle this problem. But yeah, so what's your take on this question, Wilco?
We define data quality in several pillars as well, right? So one is respondent quality, and you have survey and data integrity. You have fraud prevention with advanced tools like quality score, and technology and collaboration. Now, if you look at respondent quality, that is how people feel in a survey. And you can debate about it yourself already, right? What do we see as a good quality respondent? What we highly believe in is that if you want to have good respondent quality, but also a good accurate data set, diversity is key. So using multiple sources to attract different people is key to get to a representative data set. And often people think if I put quota on age, gender, and region on it, that is representative. But if you use a single source panel, the sample frame is smaller, right? So it is an example of all the things that we look at. Now, I know that we're almost at half an hour, right? So I will speed this up a little bit. And if we then look at fraud prevention, right, and engagement, what is key to us is that you have prevention in place in every single step. So that is from recruitment, where you do digital fingerprinting, to automated solutions that close off certain recruitment stream if you see a spike into rejected data, so that you can look in it and minimize it. But it also comes to automation to check data while people are still in the survey. Because if you think back about the story I started with, if you can avoid fraudulent people of getting an incentive, they will steer away from you because they don't get their income, right? And they go somewhere else. Now, a quality score protects ourselves from fraud and disengagement in the survey. And while it started with active checks that we used to do, the passive component is super important now. So it can check if someone is using Google Translate while they're in the survey. It can check if they copy paste their open ends from an external location. It can track how people move their mouse over the screen. What you see with fraudulent people is that they're often hyperactive on the screen, or keep it still at one single place. It can check which key you use on your touchpad. And that all combines into a quality score, identifying fraudulent people or really disengaged people. And then before they finalize the survey, if we see this is 100% disengagement or 100% fraudulent, we screen them out so they don't end up in your data set. And it's based on data that people don't see with the naked eye, right? It is catching those sophisticated fraudsters that you otherwise don't catch. And that is a super important element. Now, I often get the question, why don't you just verify people with their ID, their passport, when they subscribe to the panel? And we have that technology in place that would allow us, like banks have, right, that you upload your driving license in front of the webcam. If you would implement that when people subscribe to the panel, it will drive away so many people of participating at all, that it will impact representativity of panels, that it will impact feasibility. And we tested that, but it is more than half of the people not willing to subscribe anymore because of that step. So how we implement that technology now, if we have doubts about the data of a person, they can't claim their reward until they verify themselves via their passport. And since we implemented that technology together with quality score, we've seen data quality increasing back to, let's say, almost historical levels, right? That it means that we're at the moment at the 96, 97% acceptance rate, which it was back in the days. But you can't get to that if you don't have all those security and fraud prevention steps in place.
Great stuff, Wilco. And as you know, you participants in this webinar, this topic is dear to our heart. And but we also are we would like to keep this in time. So that being said, let's move over to the fifth and last question. And how are both companies staying ahead of AI fraud and ensuring that all data collected is from real humans? And Yeah, I think this one is for Wilco. Is this for Fredrik or for both?
I think you can start, Wilco, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine for me. Like I think, and without just touching on every single topic that is on this slide, right? I think it's about innovation, because what I started with is, if fraud is your job, you keep looking for new ways to, yeah, collect your income in a certain point. So we highly believe that the more difficult you make it to get to an incentive, they will look for alternatives to get to their income. And whether that is someone else where they can do surveys with, or whether that is getting to another industry where they can do fraud to get to their income, that doesn't matter, right? Our job and our mission is to deliver accurate, high quality data to our customers. So innovating in that space remains key. Quality score and the verification processes help to that. We're looking already into new solutions, like we built lookalike models based on the data we have for fraudulent people, so that we can have more control on people that are subscribing to the panels, right? Because, okay, this really fits someone that is a higher risk of being fraudulent. And if you can catch them at the door, that gives even bigger security, right? So that is one of the things that we're currently implementing, but we're also looking at external databases and verifying a lot of the people against those external databases. That kind of stuff is what we are currently working on. What's next?
Great. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Wilco. And Fredrik, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think one part of here is to really ensure that we stay tightly in touch with the development that happens at the data suppliers end, for example, as Wilco just mentioned, what they are doing on their side. And I think obviously it's absolutely crucial that we ensure data reliability. And I really believe that this multi-factored approach is the right thing to do now. And I think it's also for us to still stay on our toes, ensuring that our monitoring processes that we have developed for our brand tracking product, which is really able to spot these new systems or symptoms that appears, is really going to help us in collaboration with the data suppliers to understand what is this, why is this happening, and how do we prevent it.
Great stuff. Thanks a lot, Fredrik and Wilco. It's been really insightful, and there is much more to discuss. And I hope all the participants in this webinar sort of get a better picture of where the problem are, and also how we on the Nepa side, and also how Dynata work with this. So key takeaways. I mean, fraud is rising. We need new technologies and adapt to that. As Fredrik mentioned, continuous data collection is a good thing, because then you can see changes, and also multi-factor analysis is something that you should do. And finally, leverage AI-driven systems, such as Wilco was explaining about quality score, and there's much more coming down that road from the Nata side. That being said, on behalf of Fredrik and Wilco, I would like to thank everybody for attending this webinar. There are much more coming up during 2025 from Nepa side, so keep lookout for more interesting webinars coming. And of course, if you want to ask us questions, we are here for you, both Wilco and Fredrik and me. So scan the QR code if you, and then you can ask questions, or just send us an email at hello@nepa.com. Thanks a lot. Have a good day, and take care, everybody.